This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
There you go. Good evening. Welcome to the Easthampton City Council meeting for Wednesday, March 6th. The meeting tonight is being recorded and broadcast by eMedia on Charter Channel 193 and live streaming on their webpage, easthamptonmedia.org. Councilors or participants in this meeting are gathering hybrid on the order extended until March 2025, which allow us to do so. Remain both the member of the City Council and the public participating remote remain mute until recognized by the City Council President. Also, for the members of the public, please remove your camera for the duration of the meeting unless you are participating in the public speak time or the public hearing. Thank you. This meeting is now called to order. Barbara.
Tony Denham.
Here.
Salem Derby.
Present.
Omar Gomez.
Here.
JP Kaczynski.
Here.
Tom Peak.
Here.
Brad Riley.
Here.
Tamara Smith.
Here.
JT Terrell.
Here.
Owen Zarek.
Here.
Please stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I will take a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Any further discussion? Seeing none, for those in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Abstentions? Motion passes. Public speak time. This is the opportunity to address the council regarding any topic not listed under the public hearing. You have 3 minutes to make your comments to the City Council. If you're not participating in the public speak time, you have to go to the podium. You have 3 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record, and it's open to you. Anyone?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Miriam Ansara. I live at 359 Main Street. And I don't even need 3 minutes. All I want to say is that I, along with a group of about 100 Easthampton residents, are really pleased that our City Council will consider a resolution on ceasefire. We condemn the attack by Hamas. And we also want to see no more deaths in Gaza and settlement as soon as possible. We think that the City Council that represents us and our views is a very appropriate place to consider it because it's also our tax dollars being spent. And as I say, this is entirely an Easthampton group, and we really appreciate your consideration.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Tom Irwin, and I lived at 54 Central Ave in Dalton, Massachusetts. We last discussed paint stewardship, the program that allows people to drop off unwanted paint at participating retailers at no cost, on October 18th. The focus at that time was getting legislative support. That effort is now complete and led to 29 representatives and 12 senators sponsoring or co-sponsoring this legislation. This facilitated paint stewardship being viewed favorably on January 18th and sent to the House Ways and Means Committee for further consideration, which is reason for considerable optimism. However, the task now before us is to clearly demonstrate to Ways and Means that municipalities view as important implementing programs that bring relief to the solid waste issue, such as paint stewardship. Ways and Means legislators have commented that having supportive resolutions from at least 40 municipalities by mid-April would be interpreted as demonstrating the needed level of priority for the House Ways and Means to consider this legislation. Presently, 23 municipalities have passed resolutions or have written letters of endorsement. Tonight, I respectfully request that Easthampton again consider adding their valued supportive resolution to this effort. These resolutions are consistent with the state's plan. In the residential waste section of the Mass DEP 2030 Solid Waste Master Plan, of which I will give you a copy, Payne DPR is called out as a contributor to moving the state to zero waste. Of particular note, the master plan, using 2018 as a baseline, calls for 30% reduction in the waste by 2030 and 90% reduction by 2050. Without stewardship programs, how can we possibly do this? Why is the law even needed? Without the protection of this law, an antitrust suit can be brought against Paint Care, the nonprofit that receives the collected fee at the time of purchase, and to which covers the cost of hauling and reprocessing the paint. Any suit will cost millions to litigate and will bankrupt this nonprofit. Timing, can we wait? As a larger municipality, East Hampton is understandably geared to put out fires more so than prevent them. Paint stewardship, as it is not an apparent crisis, falls within the category of fire prevention, suggesting that we can wait. However, make no mistake, the crisis looms. There is no time to wait. Implementing robust product stewardship programs covering paint, mattresses, packaging, solar panels, electronics, and lithium car batteries, all of which we need, will take a minimum of 15 to 20 years of concerted effort. Our collective interests are best served by starting that journey now by supporting the first step, paint stewardship. The ask. Well, therefore, since significant municipal support through resolutions is critical to compel serious consideration and favorable review of paint stewardship by the Ways and Means Committee, I respectfully request that East Hampton City Council add their valued endorsement of paint stewardship by passing a supportive resolution. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Norman Taft, 209 Loudville Road. I'm working on frequent flyer miles tonight. However, more importantly, the issue up on Loudville Road where I live.
Please just talk to the council. Thank you.
The issue I've received a letter from the DPW indicating that the mayor has supported Eversource's request for removal of 10 shade trees, at least 3 of which are hazardous and should be taken down. I'm not disputing that. That's water under the bridge. But the issue is that we have an individual who is the acting tree warden who fundamentally is incompetent, who does not have qualifications. And this being a modern city of 16,000, we should have somebody who's professional and looking out for the urban forest and our public shade trees. If you look around, whether it be Main Street or South Street, or any other street where there's a mature tree population, you'll see stumps. Something's terribly wrong. I pressed the Public Works Director to go through a public shade tree hearing. I didn't make points, and it wasn't my intention to make points, but I want to see the right thing being done. And the bottom line is, he and possibly his predecessor have been circumventing the law, Chapter 87 of the general laws. Furthermore, part of this plays to Eversource's deep pockets, that they're willing to do so much more, as on January 25th, the director informed me. He said, I have $25,000. They do more for me. And in my eyes, that clouds his objectivity. And if the thinking is, if I can get more by letting them have what they want, which they call risk trees, then the bottom line is we've got somebody who is more of an asphalt, water, sewer guy and not a guardian of public shade trees. So when I come here the next month, I'm going to be asking you to revoke his authority and power as acting tree warden and to move it back to its park and recreation. And I'm going to ask you to start looking at where we can find somebody who will conduct themselves professionally and be a guardian of the urban forest and our public shade trees. Am I on the clock?
7 seconds.
7 seconds.
Okay, then this will continue at a future meeting. But keep this in mind, that there's some issues here, and hopefully you will not close your eyes, that you will be folks who will support the urban forest and public shade trees, and not close your eyes and
you.
hope they'll go away.
Thank you. Anyone else here? Julie?
Hi, Julie from Precinct 1. It's been a long time since I've been at a meeting. So I just wanted to ask for some clarifications on the proposed Oliver Street development. I know at the last city council meeting, $100,000 was approved from CPA funds for an archaeological digging study for that area. Prior to the approval of those funds, though, Councilor JP, I'm sorry, I can never pronounce your last name. Councilor JP had wanted to discuss possibilities for that location, but was told by, I believe, Councilor Peak that now was not the time and that it would be done later. And then Councilor Terrell also had that same question, and he also stated his support for the CPA fund and purely to test the property for viability. But then at the community block grant meeting with the Valley CDC on March 4th, it seemed like a decision had already been made if all turns out well with that archaeological study. And I also understand they're coordinating that study, which to me seems like a conflict of interest. And that if all is well, the city will continue with Valley CDC proposal. So my question is whether later on, when is that? Does the community discuss these possibilities after the proposal has been approved? I just don't know. And also during the comment section of the last city council meeting, many constituents spoke of concerns and had questions. And so the city councilor, I think it was you, President Gomez, who had said, we'll answer those questions at the March 4th meeting. Well, the mayor was there in attendance. She didn't respond to any fiscal questions or the impacts to the city resources that many of us had, and she left early. So our questions went unanswered. So how do we as homeowners and your constituents know that the many voices of concerns we have will be taken into consideration before any project is approved? I also had asked in the past about resources when the first proposals were done. I asked, what is the plan? What are we going to do for the schools, for first responders, and for the government resources that people are going to need for support? And during this meeting with the block meeting, they referred me back to the city. So I'm asking again, what is the plan for this uptick of over 400 people probably coming within the next 5 years for development for our resources? Will the taxpayers be having an increase in taxes? Many homeowners are struggling. I got to tell you, even though we have a house, does not mean we're not struggling. And many families with children are struggling. They can't afford increases, but we can't afford yet to not have the staff that we need for resources. So my question is, how do I get these answers? Because the bottom line is, in order to make full determinations of whether to support anything, and at what scale, your constituents deserve these answers, and we deserve to be heard. So I don't know, I know you can't answer me now, but I'm hoping you can direct me in the right direction to get these answers. I really appreciate your time on this, and I hope you have a nice evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie, and we will pass the information that way you can get it, okay? Anyone else from the public? Seeing none. Communication from elected officials, boards and committee. Councilor Sarret.
Thank you. I have two things, Mr. President. The first is just to address to the public and members on the council. As you know, some of the public knows, but definitely my colleagues definitely know if they're checking their email, that we received a pretty significant onslaught of emails in our inboxes recently. And sometimes we take on issues that extend beyond the hearts and minds and the ears of East Hampton. And for whatever reason, these issues attract the attention of other cities in the Commonwealth or even national attention. We just saw this last year with vital work we were doing around reproductive freedoms. Technology has provided empowerment to people to send their message to us without licking a stamp or picking up a phone. Oftentimes, these messages are in the form of pre-written form letters, so that we may receive many messages on a topic and they all might say the same thing. To me, it doesn't necessarily make those messages any less valuable. It's just how people are easily able to engage. We see these all the time on our level when we're asked to sign on to letters supporting state or federal legislation. Whether it's from East Hampton or beyond, it's our job to listen and respect these words and feedback. Respect them even if we don't agree, respect them even if our inboxes are flooded. This is part of the baggage that comes with the elected position. For some of us, these messages meant nothing. For some of us, we disagreed. And for some of us, the names and sentiments resonated deeply and spoke to a people whose numbers are so few that they need broader communications to try to be heard. I just ask that we all respect these types of messages now and going forward. It might be annoying or even in diametric opposition to our beliefs, but we have an obligation to respect them and listen. And then the other thing I just would like to mention and talk about briefly, Mr. President, we spent a good portion of the last half of last term working on a resolution against anti-Semitism. And there has been a concerning uptick in anti-Semitic incidents locally in the Pioneer Valley in the form of anti-Semitic speech, vandalisms, and incidents even in our schools. All over the country, we're seeing Jewish students attacked and harassed simply for being Jewish. We are seeing Jewish businesses targeted and vandalized simply for the cultural background of their owner. This is not too foreign from similar societal patterns we have seen during other extreme times of anti-Semitic activity and extreme hatred towards Jews. For most of you, this can be observed as an outsider and you can choose not to be involved or just ignore it. I can't. I have to live this every day. And I continue to implore you as colleagues, and based on the work that we just did recently, just to commit yourselves to recognizing and combating this wherever it occurs. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Councilor Sarrett. Any other councilor? Seeing none, I will take a motion to open public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to open the public hearing. Any further discussion? Seeing none, for those in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Abstention? Motion passes. Councilor Sarrett.
Thank you, Mr. President. So this is the item regarding the polls on Loudville, both proposed new polls as well as relocation of polls. Now, as you all recall, we had a public hearing on this 2 meetings ago, and it was, we came to the realization through some exceptional private detective work by some of my colleagues that these polls are already installed. What are we to do in that case? We're here to approve them. They're already there. So the property meeting met on the 23rd, and I appreciate my colleagues coming out on a Friday evening. We met with representatives from Eversource to discuss this. Some of them are here tonight. I'll turn this back over to the president to talk to them briefly in a second. It sounds like this was some administrative oversight. They bypassed the normal procedures that they don't really go through, one of which is obviously to wait for the municipality to approve the polls. They were very apologetic. This seems like it's a once very rare occurrence, if a singular occurrence. It also turned out that the lines were already laid on the poles, which was also troublesome, but apparently they had discussed this with the DPW director, and it was deemed necessary in order to maintain communication and power infrastructure that these be placed, or else it might put some of that in jeopardy. We, as a committee, agreed that we had a couple options. One was to certainly just ask them to take the polls away and then have this conversation again. I think that's counterproductive. And the other was to essentially leave it as is with the understanding that they need to reevaluate their procedures to make sure this doesn't happen again. I also do appreciate the input from the city council president who spoke with the city solicitor on this. So it also turned out that we probably needed this meeting anyhow because there was another poll, a 9th poll, if my math is correct, a support poll, 100/63S, which also had been previously installed, but we needed to put on the record that was there for the purpose of the motion. Also at the meeting, we had Councilor Kwasinski sponsoring some language brought forward by a resident, Mr. Taft, regarding some of the concerns around shade trees that were removed during this project. This being a relatively broad project encompassing a significant corridor around Loudville Road. And there were some recommendations to both perform maintenance around the trees that were already removed, as well as make some recommendations for replacements. I think this would probably be a good time to read those into the record. Okay. It's essentially 4 stipulations, and the first being that Eversource will be directed to grind out all stumps of shade trees removed from the Eversource project area at least 12 inches below the immediate existing service area, with sound refuse matter removed. Ground out stumps will be loamed and seeded no later than May 1st, 2024 at Eversource's cost. Eversource will provide tree replacements of at least 1.5 inches in caliber, feet in caliber, 12 inches above the existing root ball height at Eversource's cost. Landowners where trees have been lost as a result of the public shade tree hearing to receive priority consideration for acceptance or rejection, in which case the acting tree warden and his or her designee will indicate alternative locations, and all new trees shall be planted on private property no closer than 35 feet from the public road, so as not to interfere with overhead wires at maturity at Eversource's cost. The committee all agreed upon this, and the Eversource representatives also agreed to accept these terms as well. That's pretty much it. I was happy that we could move forward in concert with the utility to find at least some sort of happy middle ground. They apologize profusely. I don't think this will happen again. And that's all I have for now, Mr. President. I'll turn it back to you.
Do you know the name of the person from Eversource?
It looks like we have Nick Kriegel here, as well as Adam Yelf. I don't think I see any other Eversource names here.
Yeah, Michael Fraga as well, please.
Michael Fraga, sorry. Thank you.
Anyone from Eversource want to add something before I open it to the councilors?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was trying to turn my video on if I can. Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate that this was an oversight. You know, we were
Just for the record, your name is Michael Fraga?
Michael Fraga, the operations manager for the Hadley district, which covers East Hampton. Just wanted to apologize to the board, and you know, we jumped the gun on this project a little bit. We were trying to fund it last year, got funded for the beginning of this year, and it was construction ready. We had some resources available, and we've had, you know, quite a bit of reliability issues in that section of East Hampton. So we did bypass our normal procedures, and we have since put some checks in there to not allow that to happen. So anything that the board recommends as far as pole relocations or pole work that needs to be done in lieu of the stuff we've already done, we're open to doing, as well as all the other terms suggested by the board.
Thank you.
That would be all I have to say. Thank you.
Any councilor have any questions or comments? Councilor Riley?
Thank you, Mr. President. So, you know, part of what I think troubles me about this situation as it happened is not just that it occurred, but that we didn't hear about it until a citizen came into city council and told us about it. And then we looked into it and found out what had happened. We should be able to trust that Eversource is following the rules. And we expect them to follow the rules the same way that we ask our citizens to follow the rules of the city council. And further, I don't think that Mr. Taft should have to be policing a corporation on ensuring that they are following municipal rules. I do want to thank Mr. Taft for, as I think he put it, being a tick on a dog. It's important. You shouldn't have had to have done that, but thank you for doing it. And I also am going to be a bit of a tick on a dog with this situation. If I find out that it happened again, then I think it's open consideration for ways that we change our ordinances to create penalties for not following the rules. I don't like being that kind of a city councilor, but this was an easy thing to not do, and it still happened. So when it's difficult things that occur or there are emergency situations, absolutely reach out to us. We're an understanding and receptive body. But if we're going to ask our citizens to uphold what we put forward as rules, then corporations should do the same thing as well. So that's all I need to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other Councilor? Councilor Denham?
Yeah, I just, similarly, I don't mind being that counselor. Like, I don't want to support this in any way. I realize that there's a benefit after that, but on principle alone, I don't think, and it's not about, I feel like there was an apology to the council, but really it's an apology to our residents, right? And to Mr. Taft. I think that this is really unfortunate, and I'm struggling with the way that corporate entities, corporate bodies treat municipalities as well as its residents. And so on principle alone, I don't want to support this. I recognize there was a benefit, et cetera, but I don't want to see this happen again. I hope it doesn't, but I think it's really problematic.
Any other Councilor? Councilor Sarek?
I mean, I'm a chair of property for this term at least. If this happens again, then I would recommend in my committee that these poles be removed. I think this wasn't a clear oversight. I could defer to my colleague who's been on the property committee for many, many years that I don't think we've ever seen this before. I agree with my colleague who spoke before me that we're kind of at the mercy of a large utility company here. And as another colleague had pointed out, we've seen small businesses suffer severe penalties for not following the rules. I don't know the best way to move forward here without disrupting people's telecommunications or power. But I think that the two comments before me are duly noted, and I agree with you.
Councilor Kuczynski?
Mr. President, having been that counselor who's been on the property committee for a while, I will say that I have not had this experience in my dealing with the Eversource as those who were petitioning, or with the phone company as they petitioned for poles. I was thrilled, but let me tell you, when I went out to the site to check on, the locations and whether it made sense to put the poles where they belonged, I turned blanched because the poles were there. It just was shocking to see, knowing that the procedure and the history of the company working with the city to do this. And I think that the city's been pretty generous on its side in terms of approving the poles and working with the company. So, although I appreciate Councilor Denham's protest vote, and believe me, I would love to join her in that, I certainly do see the benefit to all of East Hampton to go ahead and not put Eversource in a position where, frankly, I don't know how much money it would cost to take down the poles and put it back up, or the time and the effort that it would take, or what it would affect in their schedule to do this if there would be other projects that would be delayed while this was being done by themselves or by a contractor. So that all being said, and with the operations manager appearing both before the committee to explain to us and explaining here before the council, I'm certainly going to vote yes in this matter. I will say that in the future, I will not hesitate to vote no, should this ever occur again. So I also, on another little side here, it came to our attention that Eversource on occasion would, or other utility companies, the phone company, leave the stumps at the site. And I find that unsightly for our community and perhaps in certain locations unsafe. So I will be advocating for the stumps to be removed in those locations in the future. I'd like to put Eversource on notice just so they're kind of prepared for that the next time they submit a request. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other councilors? Anyone from the public?
Oh, yes, coming back at you.
Can you have to go to the podium and please state your name and address for the record again? Thank you.
Norman Taft, 209 Loudville Road. I am a vegetation management professional. I'm college educated. I'm a Mass certified arborist, and I've worked for National Grid for 36 years, both on distribution, like what's going on out here, as well as transmission into Vermont. And what I'm saying to you is, large organizations can come into a community, and in many instances, can overwhelm a community, can overwhelm you folks. You may not know the right questions to ask. And I think with the Director of Public Works, the acting tree warden, I would have asked him to exercise some tough love. If you want this tree or that tree, justify it. Tell me why. Show me the defects. What he said to me is, I'm not going to tell them how to engineer, which basically is hands off. I'll let them do whatever they want, and as long as their deep pockets continue doing all this extra work for the city. So a couple things are in play here. We talked about Chapter 87 of the general laws, but then the other thing that comes into play is prevailing rates, Chapter 149 of the general laws. When we have Eversource, when Eversource uses their deep pockets to do extra work for the town, it means that a city can bypass prevailing rates, and any work that would be performed that exceeded $1,000 would have to be put out to bid. So it may be a practical consideration, but it's not a lawful consideration. You know, Chapter 87 of the general rules, if it's a public shade tree, I'm not talking about a dead, dying, or structurally weak tree. I'm talking about healthy shade trees. These are trees that should have greater oversight by not just a guy who is the former water superintendent in Northampton or the asphalt, water, and sewer guy here in East Hampton. So the bottom line is, I hope they will understand that East Hampton cares about its trees, that you folks, the council cares about their trees, and we're just not gonna give them a rubber stamp to cut shade trees that they view as a risk tree without proving it. Ask the tough questions, ask them to justify it. And I challenge you folks to do that. I challenge the highway superintendent to do that, but I don't think he has the sense of wanting to do that. Over my years in dealing with highway superintendents throughout Western Massachusetts, is that the only good tree is one that's horizontal.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else? Anyone else participating remote? See none. Before again going to Councilor Sarrett, any councilor have anything else to say? Councilor Kwasinski.
I just wanted to say that I know other communities are very concerned about their public shade trees and have gone through projects to create additional shade trees. It's good for the community, it's good for the wildlife that utilizes the tree. It helps the environment in terms of what additional trees and being able to have those benefits. So East Hampton does care, I believe, in public shade trees. And I think one of our tasks is to support whatever we can to protect those.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Sarrett.
I just potentially need some clarification from my colleague, Councilor Kwasinski. Do you have the tree information in front of you what you had the recommend?
I had the information you just read.
When transferring it over,
You lost
permission to.
What do you need?
Well, I don't remember if it was 1.5 inches or feet.
It is 1.5 inches.
Okay.
To 12.
That's what you need?
Thank you, yes.
Okay.
I just need
And
clarification.
12 inches above, not we assumed it wasn't 12 feet trees that you were going to bring. We were suggesting we bring.
I just wanted to clarify that, Mr. President. Thank you.
Do the motion.
Now make a motion? Okay. I'd like to make a motion as follows. I move that the city council approve the petition filed by NSTAR Electric Company, DBA Eversource Energy, and Verizon New England Incorporated to remove, relocate, construct, and maintain a line of poles, wires, cables, and fixtures as follows on Loudville Road to increase reliability and protection in the area. The new proposed pole installations are as follows. Pole 100/63S, new pole will be located across the street from pole tel 98 1/2E 100/63, pole 100/62M. This new pole will be located between existing poles tel 98 YI parentheses E 100/63 and tel 98 parentheses E 100/62. Pole 100/59M. This new pole will be located between existing poles tel 98 parentheses E 100/60 and tel 95 parentheses E 100/59. Pole 100/54M. This new pole will be located between existing poles tel 91 parentheses E 100/55 and tel 90 parentheses E 100/54. Pole 100/35M. This new pole will be located between existing poles tel 72 parentheses E 100/36 and tel 71 parentheses E 100/35. The proposed poles to be relocated are as follows. Pole 100/63 relocated pole 50 feet north from its existing location. Pole 100/61 relocate pole 15 feet west from its existing location. Pole 100/60 relocate pole 95 feet from its existing location. Pole 100/36 relocate pole 15 feet west from its existing location. And also that the petitioners agree to reserve space for one cross arm at a suitable point on each of said poles for the fire and police telephone signal wires belonging to the municipality and used by it exclusively for municipal purposes. Additionally, Eversource will be directed to ground out all stumps of shade trees removed within the Eversource project area to at least 12 inches below the immediate existing service area with ground refuse matter removed. Ground out stumps will be loamed and seeded no later than May 1st, 2024, Eversource's cost. Eversource will provide tree replacements of at least 1.5 inches in caliber, 12 inches above existing root ball height at Eversource's cost. Landowners where trees have been lost as a result of the public shade tree hearing to receive priority consideration for acceptance or rejection, in which case the acting tree warden or his/her designee will indicate alternative locations. And lastly, all new trees shall be planted in private property no closer than 35 feet from the public road so as not to interfere with overhead wires at maturity at Eversource's cost.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the Eversource utility pole for 5 new pole locations and for relocation. Any further discussion? Seeing none, for those one in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Abstention? One against. Yeah, motion passes with 1 against. I will take a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to close public hearing. Any further discussion? Seeing none, for those one in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Abstention? Motion passes. Mayor's communication, she's not here. Mr. Vice President, you have any announcements?
No, Mr. President.
I don't have any either. Finance, Councilor Peak.
Thank you, Mr. President. We met a week ago. There weren't any appropriations, so we took some time to start talking about the charter-required review of salaries for elected officials and appointed committees. We didn't come to any conclusions, but we were made aware that there's going to be the Collins Center is currently doing a survey of salaries and benefits for elected officials. So we are going to keep an eye on when that gets published to get sort of a little bit more context. But just in general, if there's a thing that anybody has thoughts on, feel free to email me. I know Councilor Zaret already did, but if other people have some thoughts, it's just I don't think it's something we have to move on immediately, but I'd rather it not be something that we come to the very end and we haven't thought through. That was one thing. And then we talked a bit about our auditor's quarterly fiscal report and had a bit of an enlightening conversation about how revenue estimates are generated. So that was interesting. And that's all.
Next meeting?
Next meeting is going to be March 13 at 5:30.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
5:30, room number 1.
Yep.
Thank
Same
you.
time,
Thank you,
usual time,
Councilor
usual
Peak.
place.
Public Safety, Councilor Sarek.
Thank you, Mr. President. We met last Tuesday for a couple items. We had the fire department's quarterly report, which was very informative. If councilors did not receive that, I can make sure I send it out. Most notable about that meeting was that the city's ISO rating has decreased from 5 to 3 and potentially is very close to a 2 at this point. For those who don't know, the rating is basically a cumulative score of a number of things, but it basically shows the fire department's efficacy, both via the equipment that they have, their access to water, as well as response times. And the direct impact is it potentially can lower our home insurance premiums. But it's also a great accolade for the fire department in general. They also recently passed their ambulance inspection with flying colors, no concerns. They've been receiving a number of grants, one of which will be able to fund almost completely 3 pairs of gear for our firefighters. And again, thank you to Chief Norris, always very informative. We also discussed the no parking recommendations that were made by Councilors Terrell, Denham, and Gomez in no particular order, as well as changes to parking violations. I think generally there was consensus, but we were also missing our esteemed member of the committee, Councilor Derby, so we'd certainly like him to weigh in at our next meeting. And at our next meeting, we'll have the Chief of Police there, who I think can help us wrap this up and be able to bring that to public hearing. But I'm just waiting for that meeting to occur to be able to set that. So our next meeting is next Tuesday, the 12th at 6 p.m. in room 1. We'll have the police department's quarterly report. We'll continue to discuss the amendments to traffic rules and order, Appendix A, Section 1-25, parking prohibited on certain streets during downtown hours, and changes to amounts charged for parking violations. I don't see any required extensions at this time, and thus concludes.
Thank you. Appointments, Councilor Riley.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Appointment Committee last met this Monday to discuss 4 mayoral appointees. First, we met with Leah Strode, who is being appointed to the Board of Public Works with a term expiration date of December 31st, 2026. Just a brief background, Leah is a former engineering technician for the city of Portland, Oregon. She also previously was a research associate at the UMass Amherst's Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering, and is currently a climate resilience scientist with extensive experience in stormwater pollution prevention plans, asset management, licensing and permitting, et cetera. Also of note, she participated in our city's focus groups for our climate action plan, so she's already been actively engaged at the municipal level. I presented a series of very pointed and difficult questions to answer, recognizing that a Public Works Commissioner has a lot of influence in our community. Those questions considered the full scope of the Public Works Department, difficult conversations around sewer rate increases, and even questions about what it means to plan for the future as it pertains to climate change, disaster resilience, and increases in rainfall from tropical storms or even the effects from severe droughts. The committee recommended her with a vote of 3-0. So before I go on to the next appointee, if anybody has any questions, I'm open to answer them.
Any councilor have any questions?
Okay, perfect, thank you. And then next we met with Donna Chappello, who is being appointed to the Affordable and Fair Housing Partnership with a term expiration date of December 31st, 2025. Donna has a long career as an employment, property, and criminal defense attorney at the state and federal level. Also comes highly recommended by partnership leadership. She's done a considerable amount of advocacy work around reentry, compassionate release, and even substance abuse support. We talked in great deal about the need for a legal mind on the partnership and ways that she can advocate for fair and affordable housing. I don't know how many of you know this, but oftentimes the federal government will deny people with criminal convictions access to certain public benefits to alleviate poverty. Of course, we cannot change the federal system, but to have that kind of perspective and voice at the local level, I think will be very helpful. And then finally, as somebody who used to be on the partnership, I recognize the value that she can bring to the partnership's work. We have real estate agents and landlords and poverty advocates doing this work, and having a lawyer as a part of the team would be a massive benefit to their work. We also voted to recommend her with a vote of 3-0. Any questions?
Any councilor have any questions? No, Councilor Riley?
Okay, perfect. And then finally, we met with Evan Garber and Ronald Albertson, both of whom are being appointed to the Manhan Rail Trail Committee with a term expiring on December 31st, 2025. Important fun fact, both of them are former Boy Scouts and Eagle Scouts, and also talked about wanting to preserve and protect the woods and the surrounding areas of the Manhan Rail Trail, and to be good stewards of the East Hamptons portion. As we all know, this is a regional rail trail that has many municipal governments overseeing its protection and maintenance. Evan specifically wants to focus on ADA compliance and accessibility improvements, and Ronald, who is an avid biker and also a former mechanic, has built and assembled and donated bikes to people with income restrictions and also people who are homeless as a means of transportation. So these are admirable traits for members of this committee. And then we also voted to recommend both of them with a vote of 3-0.
Any councilor have any questions? No. Councilor Riley?
Okay, so I'm going to do everybody in one motion then. Does that sound good? Okay. So I move to appoint Leah Strode to the Board of Public Works with a term expiration date of December 31st, 2026. Donna Chappello to the Affordable and Fair Housing Partnership with a term expiration date of December 31st, 2025. And Evan Garber and Ronald Albertson to the Manhan Rail Trail Committee with terms expiring on December 31st, 2025.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve those 4 appointments. Any further discussion? Seeing none, for those in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Abstention? Motion passes.
All right,
Councilor
thank you,
Riley.
Mr. President. And then the appointment committee will meet next will next meet on Monday, March 18th at 6 p.m. in Conference Room 2 right here behind City Council chambers, and thus concludes.
Thank you. Ordinance, Councilor Denham.
Thank you, Mr. President. So we had a great conversation with the planning board. So it was a joint meeting with the planning board and to discuss the electronic message center signs. They voted unanimous to support the change, which would allow us to partnership between cities and individuals who are wanting to have electronic message centers signs. So right now, which would be allowed to use for whatever they are promoting, but also for the city, for the benefit of the city, it allows us for public messaging around amber alerts, silver alerts, as well as if Mountain Road is closed, et cetera. So it's a good opportunity for them to be able to have those signs, but also a benefit to the city. So we are currently waiting for the report. And once we receive that, we will be able to schedule our meeting. We haven't scheduled a meeting yet because we're currently waiting for Vice President Derby to win the state championship with his basketball team, who are currently in the Elite Eight. So we are just kind of waiting for that to, both cheering them on, but also waiting for that to happen. But also we're waiting for the report so that we can move forward. And that's everything. So that concludes.
Thank you. Property, Councilor Sarek.
No more to report. We covered the poll location request, and we don't have any other meetings scheduled at this time, and I don't think we have any business before us, so this concludes.
Thank you, Councilor. Rules and Government, Councilor Kwasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Rules and Government Relations Committee did meet on March 13th. I'm sorry. The last meeting, February 28th. And we discussed March 13th. I got March 13th on the brain because we'll be meeting again. and a very important session. But on February 28th, and we discussed ranked choice voting at that time. For the ranked choice voting, Councilor Peak gave a presentation and had written much of the language for the existing ordinances in the city for the election process, where we have ranked choice voting for the mayoral election and ranked choice voting for the precinct elections, which are elections that generally have 1, 2, 3, 4 candidates. Generally, you don't get 6 or 7 or 8 candidates in that mix. What we're discussing is the measure to deal with the school committee election, and which has six positions at one time. And sometimes it generates lots of interest, so you could get 6, you could get 12, a dozen people who might be interested, and then the process of keeping those people straight and doing some rank ordering, and how many, whether you leave out certain folks after a certain number. It got pretty technical at that point. We also discussed the strategy of should we move forward with the request to make those elections be ranked choice voting elections, whether or not the state legislature would much rather see us do another vote by the public on the matter. Therefore, there would be 2 elections, and how that would play out in terms of any delays in the process, and whether the strategy was we shouldn't, and talking to the lawyer about his comments about the subject as to whether or not, how he sees legality of the matter. So that will be continuing. We expect that on March 27th at 6:30, we'll be revisiting the ranked choice voting in an attempt to move that matter along. The other matter that we'll be discussing on March 13 is the issue of the ceasefire resolution at 6:30. Both would be hybrid meetings, we expect. That concludes, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Kuczynski. New business, Councilor Derby.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have a request to amend traffic rules and orders, Article 6, Section 1-41, one-way streets, to add Emerald Place and Clinton Street to the list of one-way streets. I move that we send that to Public Safety.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to move the request to amend traffic rules and order to the Public Safety Committee. Any further discussion? Seeing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Abstention? Motion passes.
And we also have City Council President appointments to Licensing Board. I'm going to do these separately. So I'll start with the first one, which is Rebecca Bell to the Licensing Board with an expiration date of June 6, 2026. I move that be sent to Appointment Committee.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to send Rebecca Bell to the Appointments Committee to review her appointment. Any further discussion? Seeing none, for those in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Abstention?
Abstain.
Motion passes with 1 abstention. Councilor Derby?
Okay, we also have a appointment to the Licensing Board, Stephen De Saulniers, with an expiration date of June 5th, 2024. I move that be sent to Appointment Committee.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to move the appointments to the Appointments Committee. Any further discussion? Seeing none, for those in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Abstention? Motion passes. Councilor Derby?
We have an interdepartmental transfer, $49,588.09 to the PEG Access account for cable-related purposes. I move that be sent to Finance.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to send.
Do a first
We
reading
should
on that
probably do a
one.
first reading.
Yeah, sorry.
Do you have it?
That's fine. I do not have the.
You have
I
it?
got it.
Because we don't need a public hearing for this, right?
Yes.
I have it.
Okay.
Do you want, I
have it.
can do it?
I can do it.
All right,
Yep.
there you go.
I got it. Thank you.
All right. A request is hereby made for the approval of the following appropriation amount requested, $49,588.09, to be transferred from PEG Access account for $49,588.09, to be transferred to PEG access account, $49,588.09. The amount requested will be used for the following purpose: to give approval to spend from the PEG access receipts reserved accounts for cable-related purposes consistent with the franchise agreement. Make that request in the form of a motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to send this item to the Finance Committee. Any further discussion? Seeing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Abstention? Motion passes. I will take a motion to adjourn.
You're going to set a public hearing?
Oh, you want to, for one meeting,
For
March what?
20th?
March 20th. I have to make a motion.
I'll make a motion to set a public hearing for that at
March 20th, 6:15.
6:15.
Second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to schedule a public hearing at March 20th at 6:15 in this chamber. Any further discussion? Seeing none, those one in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Abstention? Motion passes. We'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn. For those one in favor?
Aye.
Look like everybody want to leave. The motion passed. Thank
We got some
you.
things to sign.
Thank you, everybody.